This is the first part of a multi-part tutorial covering how to mod Hotline Miami. So I've created for you a folder of essentially stuff you'll need in order to do this. Now, there's a README here, which means you should probably read it. Now this basically contains instructions and further details and descriptions of all this stuff that is included in this folder. But just to provide a general overview, I've included GameMaker 7 for those people who want to use GameMaker 7, though there's really no need to use it, or at least in my opinion, because it's much less efficient than a GameMaker 8. But anyway, I've included the advanced version just in case you do. This GMD compiler thing is it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a decompiler for GameMaker, and what you're gonna do is basically when you download your hotlinemiami.exe file from here, because it needs a specific version to run, so you can get it from that link. You want to put it in there, and I can show you basically what you need to do. So if we go to the decompiler here and open it up. Well, I don't know why it's registering as a rare document, but that's not what it is. It's a Java document. So you want to open it like that, and just give it a moment. Well, okay. While it's loading, I'll explain some other things. This right here is probably the single most important thing besides the actual game file. It's the GameMaker 8.1 installer, and for all purposes, so far as I know, you can't get it anywhere else because Yo-Yo Games discontinued support for GameMaker 8.1. Oh, and here's the thing. But anyhow, it's just an installer, and you probably won't find it anywhere else, so this is important to keep around if you want to do it. So basically, anyhow, this is a GMD compiler. This is what it looks like. There's a license, there's an about. Instaplay, fairly useless. So what you want to do is you want to go to Target and you want to load. So you want to navigate to where you saved your file. So not my games, game development. So I, for example, saved it here. Alright, so I would click Hotline Miami here, and I want to export it as a exe because that's what it is. Or no, this is an exe, and I want to export it as version 7 because that's what it is. Then I click process, and what I'll do is create a GMK in the same folder you made it. So for example, you'll create Hotline Miami here. Now that's all unnecessary because I've included hotlinemiami.gm81. Now the difference between the GMK and the GM81 is that Hotline Miami 1 was originally written in GameMaker 7. Actually, both of them were, but for this purpose we'll use the first one. And GameMaker 7 has some different scripting errors and stuff, which don't translate well over to GameMaker 8 because they got rid of some of the functions. So all they did was just, I guess, translate it so that it's compatible with GameMaker 8. But this one will suffice. You don't need to download any of this. You don't need to download any of these. You just really need these two files, but if you want to work in GM7, you can do that if you want, though I don't know why you would. So anyhow, after you install GameMaker 8, you'll be prompted for a license key, and that's included in the README. So after you enter that, assuming that you want to turn it on to advanced mode, so if you didn't already, you want to go to File and Advanced Mode here. Now, to actually open the file, what you want to do is go to Open and navigate to the directory you want to build it. So here I want to go to Hotline Miami here. And it's going to take a little bit to load, but anyhow. So this, for the purposes of this video, since it's just an introduction, I'll just be explaining some of the general principles of what each of these things mean and what to do and whatever. So first thing is sprites. Sprites, as you can see here, are basically just graphical representations of things that occur in the game. So for example, if we want to look at Richter, this is Richter's face, and we can open it and we can do show preview and stuff, and so this is where you basically just draw all your shit, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Now, sprites are connected with objects, so we'll move down here to objects because this is, I guess, the core core function of gameplay. So objects are basically they're if you're not familiar with programming, basically all an object is, it's like a container or something. So if we open up like a, I don't know, like a briefcase, for example. This is the briefcase you pick up in the Prelude Metro. So what you want to do is you want to well, how an object is oriented is basically you have a name for it, which it's just a name. You can name it anything. You don't have to include this OBJ, though this is easiest for me and for other people as well. You assign it a sprite. Sometimes you don't, but most of the time you do. And basically, you just want to click on this thing, and all your sprites will appear. So, because there's so many in this game, it takes a while to load, but you can just scroll around and assign any kind of sprite you want. So, how an object works is its main behaviors are controlled through these things called events. So here you see add event, delete, change, and you see this little taskbar on this side. For each one of these events, I'll explain to you the most important ones. So create is the initiation event. You basically open it and you have a number of variables here and stuff and like constants or whatever that you can define in order to set the properties of it. So this is basically the over description. Everything that you everything like variables or whatever that you want to declare, you declare in here. So basically, when the object is created or it's generated, it will launch this code. Step is the I guess a logical functioner. If that, I suppose that doesn't make much sense, but step is basically everything that happens at a certain point. So for example, if you want your character to touch a window and break it, for example, you would code that in step. So here, for example, with the briefcase, just not to get into any specifics, but basically what this means is if it's not touching anything, then the speed of it is 0, and if it is touching something, then it's gonna rotate. And if the Xbox buttons are on, or I mean if an Xbox controller's in, then it automatically goes to this script, which I'll explain next. Then you have global right pressed. So if you go into add event and you go to I don't know, keyboard or something, you have all these different things, which basically you can assign further functions to specific keys or button presses. And draw is exactly what it sounds like. You enter it into it and it basically draws certain things for you. Depth controls basically how deep it is in the room, so you can use this to layer things. Visible controls whether or not you can see it when you start the game, and solid controls if it's a solid or not. Though most games have different versions of this. If you just set a general solid property, you generally won't have collision detection on unless you use a very simple script. Parent and mask we won't worry about for right now. Persistent we won't worry about for right now. So after objects is scripts. Scripts generally control objects, but they can also be used to control any number of things. So, for example, all these things you see, BGM, this is all music. This DLL free, that's saving, clean memory saving. Get state, this is Xbox controller stuff. But for example, if you want to do check mission complete, this is just a place where you can consolidate a lot of code and have it applied to multiple occasions rather than having an individual object for each one. So for example, if I want a song to play or sound to play, or actually an even better example is if I want for example, the player to move, you have it here. And you just have to reference the script, which I'll explain later when I get into scripting and stuff. Next most important thing after scripts are rooms. Rooms are where all the action happens. So this is where most of the level design takes place. So let's look at for example, Jacket's apartment. This is Jacket's apartment, and what happens is you can either turn on a grid, turn it off. I generally don't use a grid, but most items will snap to it if you have a snap on here. The way you add things is you go to objects, you click on this whatever object it is. Sometimes it's a blank space. You get this large scroll down list of things you could put in. Now, I had a lot of difficulty with this at the beginning, but things like rotations have to be coded in with code, which I'll go through in much greater detail when it gets to that. But generally, this is how you place like I guess the most basic like layout of things. For example, also we can look at yeah, I guess we can look at the train station or whatever. So this is the train station. As you can see, it generally looks the same. Certain things may be facing different directions, but overall it's the same. And you place objects in here. Now, these other things, views and backgrounds. Views, you are fairly advanced and you don't want to touch this. Backgrounds basically control the background of this, and in Hotline Miami they're not used so much. But for example, if you're doing a side-scroller game, you can make this like a sky or something, but here we're not going to touch that. Room settings, basically this just controls the size of the room, the FPS of the room, or the speed at which you want to run the name of the room. And you can do creation code here, which is just like it's further variables, and that's more programming, which is rarely used. Now to set ground tiles, or to set ground like things like this, you go to tiles. Tiles is basically just flat images, which save space, so you don't have to create an individual object for each tile. And you can go to something like this. In Hotline Miami, there's one large background thing, so you select, for example, this tile, and I want to place it there, and then I can place it there. Or right now it's not configured, but I'll talk about that later when I get down to it. Timelines, don't worry about them. Fonts, self-explanatory. You open it up, you can choose a font. I've included a list of most of the fonts in the README, so you can go download those. Backgrounds, this is where you create backgrounds, and generally you want to click use as tile set. This allows you to use it as like these little bricks rather than just whole things. So it usually default to 16 by 16. You click OK, and that's what you want. Yeah. So here you can see that all these little tiles are now separated into pieces. So you can use them as like bricks. Sounds. This is where you find all the sounds for the stuff. Yeah, I mean it's just self-explanatory. For things like environmental sound effects, you want WAV files. For music, you want OGGs. But one mistake that I used to make was I didn't know how the sound worked for this, so I would just import everything into the actual thing, and then my file sizes became massive and resulted in a lot of corruption. So don't do that. I'll release what's it called? I've released a tutorial on how to mod music later for this game. And that's more or less it for now. So I hope this was an informative video, and if you have any specific questions or any specific requests that you want me to address, then I can address them in the next video. Thank you, and have a nice night.